Good morning. It is 10:30 a.m. It's Sunday, and that means it is time for Sunday Club, a weekly stream where we build a Ruby on Rails app together. And it is a Ruby on Rails app that allows people who have YouTube channels or Twitch channels to basically build little mini websites for their videos. And so they can give us the details of their channel and we will build a little mini website for them. Okay, we've got some comments already. I'm going to come on to those in just a second. Okay, good morning, by the way. It's nice to see people up on Sunday morning. A couple follow-up bits and bobs before we get started. One, I hope you all had a lovely Christmas and New Year. And two, I am aware that I did say that I did have the week off work and that I would do a homework edition of the stream where we would do some sketch designs for the user interface. I did have the week off work, but I did not do the other stream. I was doing a couple of other, it's my stupid loopback thing. I was doing a couple of other bits and bobs. I actually did a Rails update for a different app in my spare time, so I didn't get time to do that. I'm also aware that what I want to do today is round off the kind of end-to-end user onboarding stuff that we've been working on, and that it looked ridiculous without having a nice user interface on it, which will be all shiny. So I am aware that I didn't do it, and I said I would. I do apologize, and I will try and make some time for it, hopefully this week, but I'm not going to make any promises. So let's jump straight into things. Oh, and what do we want to look at today? So basically, just before I get to the questions that are coming in on the chat, I basically just want to cover two things today. I'm not sure quite how much time we'll have, but we started this process of importing the YouTube videos last week via a background job. So we had done all of the work to set the background job up and then do this import, and we just kind of chucked it in a background job and just left a little loop in there. But I had actually written out some notes around like error handling and maybe we could move it out of the job and put it in a different class or something. So I do want to we'd brushed over that quite quickly. And also someone asked me during the week around like service objects and service stuff like that. So I think all that could be interesting to take a quick look at. And the other thing I do want to just do is the other thing we did last week, just right at the end to kind of cover over a bunch of mess, was rather than taking us to a user's site, we have to go to a user's channel. And I just want to switch that out. I want to take them to the site, because that's the thing that's when we were changing the onboarding, it was the site model that we actually started looking at. So I want to just build out a controller for this site and take them there, and then show the channels there, and then that will have us kind of go on that into it. So that's what I want to cover today. All right, so let's jump into it. And if I go to this view and bring this over, I'm sorry. So on the chat, I don't know if I have a way of bringing that back onto my screen. So good morning, Justin is asking. So I'm going to read out the question because you won't be able to see it on screen. Sorry, my other view doesn't have the chat on the one with my face on. So I'm just reading off the other screen. I was wondering if you have thoughts about how to get the video information from a channel which has over 500 videos. It seems to be a limitation provided by the Google API. Oh, okay. So super relevant question for what we were doing last week, which I really appreciate, by the way, because that means that we can stay on topic for this week. Okay, so URL as well. So yeah, this is exactly the kind of edge cases we want to look at for this process. So this is the API. So this is something that I don't know how deeply we delved into these docs, but it just says channel ID. If we just channel ID. Search results are constrained to a maximum of 500 videos. If your request specifies... Okay, I was wondering if you thought about how to get them. My first thought on that is, does the gem that we are using solve that problem for you? So essentially, I'm assuming that that's only per response. So you can just make multiple requests. If you've got thousands of videos on a channel, which presumably means they don't do them week by week like I do, you can say, hey, give me the first 500, and then you say, right, give me the second 500, And I would assume that there's some sort of param where we can say, okay, maybe there's an ID. I don't think the IDs are sequential, are they? But there would be like a date or something we could use. So you could say, okay, well, there's 5,000 videos. Give me the first 500. I store some piece of information around that. It's either like a cursor, like we can loop over, or there's a date or something where we can say, okay, give me everything between these 2 dates, then these 2 dates, then these 2 dates. However, let's go take a look at the gem, Rails YT gem. Because, and the thing that makes me think that the gem might handle it is I have used a Shopify gem that did this really well. Maybe it is just the Shopify gem. I can't remember because it was a while ago. But we had to go and get products orders from a store, and we needed like either the orders or the line items from the orders or something like that. And you basically said, go and get me all of them. And it was the same issue. There were constraints on the API, which was like, I will only bring you back the first 100 or 200. But the gem, when you said, go and get me all of them, the gem would basically handle the process of looping over those and getting all of the requests, and just it would bring you back success or failure or and the list of data. So I'm just wondering, we can go take a look. Let's see what it does. So didn't even look at any of that. Let's just go see what it does. Well, it's on the videos, I would assume. I can't remember what we call. Issue link above 360 on the gem discusses a way someone is trying to solve the issue. The GitHub issue link above 363. So do you mean issue 363 on this gem? Yeah, here we go. Can't get an entire channels list. Okay, cool. So add offset 2. Okay, amazing. To grab the video information. But I missed almost half the videos. Here's a snippet. Okay, so yeah, sounds like it's so they are doing get the first 50. Okay. Oh, okay. Uses the section set it says using a different endpoint. And summary, they should work for fetching all videos from a channel. Okay, yep. So we've got I'm not quite sure how that one is. Get some channel. Yeah, I'm not. I'd have to delve more specifically into that, but it sounds like we're kind of on the right lines there in terms of if there's a limit on the 500. So where is that actually happening? I don't know if I'm going to delve to that. This is definitely an issue that's going to face our app. Where is, I can't even remember what code we call. Do we call like videos.retrieve or show or something like that? It's in popular channels. It's just YouTube channel.videos. Okay, so when we go and create the channel, then we do videos. Yeah, we'd have to go looking around this, but I would imagine it's possible in here. We'd have to go and look through the gem code. I kind of just abstracted over all of this in the streams. I actually have no idea how this gem does the things that it does. Mainly just that it does them. So I think, unfortunately, I don't have a quick answer for you, but it is something that we will take a look at that I'm interested in figuring out as well. I'll tell you what I can do though. I'm gonna just I've been using GitHub a bit more. Let's actually make a quick GitHub issue on the Sunday Club. So can we retrieve all videos for channels with more than 500 videos? And I will then know that we can take a look at this. So we've got this here. I'm just going to not write this up very quickly. Oh, another bit of feedback, by the way. Oh, that's not the right URL. Another bit of follow-up, sorry, by the way, is that I know I haven't added chapters to all of the videos. This is just another bit of feedback of stuff that I haven't done. So we've got that. And there was also this. Because chapters help people skip over bits like this. If they're not too interested in what we're looking at specifically, they know they can skip to the next bit where we look at some code or something like that. I am aware of how useful people find those, and I literally just haven't had a chance to do them because they take a little longer than you would think, and usually make plans to do them, but I then just sit down and do a bunch all in a row. So I think, can I grab your chat here? Okay. So I think I can kind of put all of these. Sorry, I'm just gonna, because otherwise I'll forget what I was trying to accomplish by copying and pasting these in. Great. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave that issue on the Sunday Club repo. So if you take a look at this, or if you want to talk to me about it or anything outside of the streams, then we can take a look at it there. And maybe if the issues have got a kind of a working version, this one here seems to say that there's 1,000 coming back. Oh, cool! And you can see there's even a link on that one there to our issue as well. So let's see if we can get that resolved. Okay, right, cool. So I'm going to move on to our background job. Let's go take a look at where we got to. So we had things working. So we'll just do a quick recap on where we were up to. So we had users coming through. Actually, let's get our Jamboard up because it's super useful to look at that. Our very well drawn documents, just because they relate so well if you are jumping in on this stream. So we've got our detail. So this is kind of our user onboarding process. That's what we want to get rounded off today. So we've got our homepage. Then we take the user to the details controller where they now give us the YouTube channel ID. When they then give us that ID, we create a background job, which goes off and retrieves the videos for the channel, only up to 500 of them, apparently. And then while that is happening, they can create their user account and things like that. And if you want more details of this, you can check last week's stream. And then when they get to at the moment when they get to their channel where we take them, we show them the videos. However, that's one of the first things we want to swap. At the end of last week, we swapped it so that they had to go to a channel show view because that's the only one we had. Whereas really the thing that we're creating here in these first couple of steps is the site. Because remember, the app builds sites for channels or for users, and then they can add channels to them. So what we really want to do is have them go to the site. So we want to swap that out as part of this. So let's take a look at where we got to. So here in our details controller, we have our job getting created, populate channel videos job. And then in our users controller, we then redirected them to the channel. So that's the bit we want to change today. We want that to go to the site path for the new site that they have made. And we've already got the site, so that should be no bother. We've already got a bunch of stuff. We just need a controller and a show action. So then we've got our job. So let's take a look at this. This is where we got to last week. So we had installed Active Job, which is the thing inside Rails that helps us kind of ask it to do background jobs. And we are using the YT gem, which we've just been looking at for that issue. We are then looping over each of the videos that get returned up to 500. And for each one, we made a corresponding model on our end last week, I think, called video. And we are basically creating an instance of video or a record at our end for each of the videos that come back via the API. And we discussed a bunch of issues with this that we are probably going to just hand wave over for now, that we're not going to worry about too much, just because I don't really want to spend weeks delving into this one aspect. But there's issues like if we had a failure, let's say there were 500 videos and we had a failure on the 200th and the job then retries, we've already got 200 videos in the system. So how do we want to resolve that? So for example, we could flush all of the existing videos, which you probably don't want to do, but we could also check to see if a video, by flush I mean remove them all and just like do a blank start each time. We could look to see if a video had already been imported, so we could look at the external ID or to see whether there was one present, and if not, if there is already one present, don't import it. That, for example, creates things where you're thinking around, okay, well then we're doing a lookup for every single one that we import. Do we care? Probably not. But what we could also do is import. You could do a with videos if YouTube underscore channel dot videos is already bringing you back a collection of a collection there. If it's already done the query to the API, maybe you've already got a bunch of IDs in there. You could then do a single lookup to load all of those videos, and then you would only just have one request to get the API, one request to get to see if there are any local videos that have those external IDs, and then you could just check against those. That would save you then having to do a database lookup every time that you were doing an import here. But this seems like something where just do it quickly. So we could do like I think we're in a loop here. So is it .exists? I think .any would get you there as well, I think. I can't remember there is a difference and I can't remember what it is. So this one will work because I can't remember whether exists is the right thing anyway. So what this would do is it would do a query for each iteration of this loop, because it's saying, okay, well, does one exist? And video is that's our video model. I'm pretty sure we called it video. Yeah. So that is saying, okay, we'll do a lookup in our app and see if we already have one for this ID. And if we do, then just go to the next loop. So that would save us doing that. Again, what the other thing I was saying is, yeah, we could, well, this would do, I don't think this is too painful. If we're only getting 500 at a time and it's in a background job. Again, this is the kind of thing where your use case, it's really, really affects how you would approach this problem. Like I just don't, we're not building anything at scale or anything like that. This probably isn't viable if you're importing, you're running this job a bajillion times or something like that. Like you would want to do one, you would probably want to do this, I guess. Videos. And then you would then want to do a lookup for I think you can just pass in an array here. Oh, I can't remember. I don't know I don't even know what that's bringing back, but I'm trying to get to local videos. This is very, very poor. So these are like the ones that are coming from YouTube. These are the ones we've got stored locally, which isn't local, but like app videos. I can't remember the structure of what comes back here. It's YouTube video.id, so presumably we could, I can't remember the syntax for that as well. It might be where.in or something like that. You basically want to say, go and get, in a single query, API query, go and get all the videos. Then in a single database query, go and get all of our videos. Then you have those two things. You could cap the size of them or something if you're worried about memory or some sort of capacity thing. and then you would check those two things against each other rather than doing the lookup every time. So that's just so that would look like well, it'd be the same thing. So next, if app videos, yeah, that would then change to YouTube videos, and then that would then, and then you, I think you could then do app videos dot includes, can't remember. I think it's include. And then you could just look for the IDs. In fact, you could just do a take ID there and just look whether there was an array. So why am I doing all of that pseudocode? It's basically to show you that there are so many ways to improve kind of that lookup, but how deep you need to go on things like that are specific to you, and that's something that's really difficult to articulate when you're watching a tutorial or a stream like this, because let's say you run this script once a day because you're only working one channel or something like that. I'm just going to undo this while I'm talking. You don't really care about importing 500 videos and doing a lookup for each one. Like, it's going to run once, it's going to take 5 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever. You don't care. Like, that's not worth your time. If you're going to run it all the time and you're going to throw loads of stuff at it, sadly, well, not sadly, but it is incumbent upon you to kind of have a sense of that, which is difficult if in that learner stage where you're like, okay, how much of this do I need to care about? And then the next step on from that is like having good error handling and performance monitoring and things like that. So let's say that you do run this and we are doing a lookup every time, and you don't really think about it too much. And then over time, the app gets more popular and it's doing more stuff. How are you going to know that this script is where things are getting painful? And that is about having things like New Relic, Scout, Skylight, or whatever that other one is, I can't remember. So many of them, these kind of application performance monitoring things. You want to try and get ahead of that because you don't want to then get like, oh, hey, the importer has crashed because we've got problems with scale or whatever it is. And then that happens, but that's the kind of thing that when you're working on these background jobs that you can be thinking of now. And if you're not sure what that looks like, you can start to ask questions around it, like on Stack Overflow or whatever now, rather than getting burned when it breaks later. So yeah, hopefully that's useful in some way. I'm just going to do the dumb thing here and just look it up so we don't skip it. Okay, so I actually made some notes further down. I'm hoping these are on the screen. Yeah. So calls for a list of videos, handles the API being down, handle weird responses. So one of the things we didn't really look at is this handling things happening here. So this hasn't really come up much in the work we've done so far, because we've been really in Rails, and we've been in this, we mentioned this last week, we've been in the kind of standard request and response cycle where if anything goes too far wrong, we either want to show the user an error, like on the screen, nicely formatted and whatever, or we want to explode, basically. So like there is a real problem and we just want to show an error page, and we want that error to get handled by our error handling software, Rollbar or Honeybadger or whatever. The next thing that we actually have the choice is in a background job we can rescue those jobs. We'll take a look at that in a second. So Justin's question is, would there be a performance difference if you were to pluck all the external IDs into an array and subtract it from a pluck of external IDs from the database? Yeah, that was kind of the pseudocode where I was going to external ID and subtract it from a pluck of external IDs. Yeah, so pluck all external to an array and subtract it from a pluck of external IDs. So you've still got that API request going to get the first set here. So that would be presumably the one you would be comparing it to, rather than pluck all the external ID and subtract it from a pluck of external IDs. Yeah. So you mean the pluck from a pluck from that request? Yeah, I don't. That's for those kind of performance benefits, once you've got the gist of like, okay, well, rather than doing the lookup each time, we now have two collections. We now need to just go and compare them. Yes, I can't remember. I never remember stuff like that. So that specific question is around like what's the performance benefit there. Once you're thinking like that, it's and you're like asking good questions like that. That stuff isn't too difficult to kind of benchmark, even just kind of locally, just to test it out. And you're talking about smaller performance changes potentially. Although you do have things like how much of that do you need to hold in memory, like you're saying, that you could just do the query for the IDs, whereas I'm querying, like this query is pretty, well, it's doing an any, so I think it'll just do a lookup, but we could accidentally bring back a video or a huge collection of videos just if we didn't really think about it. So yes, I think there would be a performance difference. I don't know quite how beneficial it would be, but it could be hugely beneficial. So that's the kind of thing where there's some great stuff from the guy who works at Heroku and a couple of and Nate Berkopec as well around like benchmarking. And there's a couple of gems that are really worth doing. And I never remember how. I always go and look at their little examples and just copy and paste stuff over as to how to look at the benchmarks because I have a really poor memory. So what we are just going back to where we were. So we're talking about kind of rescuing these exceptions here. So I don't really know if I really want to do anything too crazy here, just because I'm looking at time more than anything else. So we've got like a few things that we could kind of mention, which is like if you rescue in a background job, if you remember what we discussed was basically throwing an exception in a background job in, I think this is in all, I don't know actually know if this is an active job thing, but certainly in delayed job. Basically, if you throw an exception in it, it will retry based on the retry logic. You can go take a look last week at what that does. And for this is pretty much what we wanted to do. And I don't really know how much time I want to look into this, but I'll give you an example of like, if the API is, you might get an API error for, let's say, what's an example I'm trying to give here? Let's say you had, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to think of things we can do in just a few minutes because I don't really want to spend all the time back on this thing because it kind of works and we could spend ages on this. So this issue here, this line on line 9 is solving the fact that this task, this background job, is trying to do all of the videos every time, like trying to import all of the videos every time. But if there's a problem with one of the videos, that doesn't help us because that will fail every time. And so what we could do in here within our loop is we could have maybe there's a specific problem. Yeah, we have a specific problem for a video, and we're like, something's gone. Sorry, something's gone wrong with like. There's like a video with a weird character, or like just some encoding issue or something like that. This will still fail every time, and we want it to. Maybe we want it to tell us for now, but what we could do is rescue that specific error, and so we could say. I'm just making stuff up. Like, let's say the gem throws like a cool custom exception or something like that. And we have that. What does that autofill do? I genuinely didn't know that was about to happen. So by typing E, it swaps it out with begin. How is that helpful? I don't know what that's trying to do. Okay, cool. So here, for example, we could then say we could then handle this custom exception differently. So maybe we could report it to our things. We could say, I don't have rollbar installed here, but we could say rollbar dot. I don't know. I just write report. I'm writing some pseudocode here. And then we could just tell it that the error, things like notify or something. Is that what rollbar does? Can't remember. And then we basically rescued that, and it would allow it to carry on and not freak out, basically. Or maybe we want that in the loop. But what I'm trying to say is like what we rescue in the background job is another thing that's incumbent upon us to have a think about. And again, in these cases, I'm just going to let everything fail just because I don't really want to spend a huge amount of time on this. Yeah, so Justin's suggesting some things. So an API error, if we run out of quota, is probably good. That's actually a really good example of allowing it to back off, especially. We talked about that last week. So the retries in delayed jobs specifically will be like, okay, well, I'll try after, I don't know what it is, 5 seconds, and then 10 seconds, and then a minute, then 10 minutes, or whatever the back off kind of algorithm is. If you maybe the service is down or your API quota has gone out, like I said, you don't want them all to keep retrying really quickly. So you might just, I suppose for us, we just want it to raise. And then if a video with that description, just something wrong with the video. So I wanted to come back and cover that, but I'm just thinking I don't really want to delve down that hole because I'm just aware of the time. So I might leave what we have for now and come back to that as like a homework edition one. I'm not going to commit myself to doing other channels and stuff, but because I think that would actually be pretty interesting because we've got some. Okay, so that leads me on to the other thing. Yeah, okay. Come on, Max. Should have written out I think today. So that then leads us on really neatly to the other thing that I got asked about during the week, which is the concept of, we mentioned last week, of moving this out into not doing it in the job. So here we're actually doing this in the perform action here. And we don't have to do this here. We actually want, well, ideally, I think we would want some code that was specifically just in charge of doing this. And for me, there are probably 2 things happening here. 3, 1, 2, 3. One is going to get the YouTube videos from the gem and having that collection. So these lines here, what are they actually doing? They are abstracted away by a gem, but they're actually handling a lot of the complexity around going to YouTube, making sure that YouTube, we've asking them for this API request. Hey, give me this, handling all of the responses from that. Do I have a set of videos? Yes or no? So presumably, I actually don't know what the gem will do. If this is invalid, do we get back, and does it raise an exception? Does it just bring back an empty collection for videos? Like that alone, there's a lot of complexity there. So that alone could be something where on our side, the gem is abstracting that away, but we might want to have that handled by a specific class that was then we could wrap, and we could care about what happens. So for example, if it's an invalid channel ID, the gem is just going to tell you. The gem doesn't care about what that means, but what it means for us is that we can't do anything else with that user, that the channel ID they've given us, and we might need to send an email and say, hey, this is invalid, can you make sure it's correct, or do something else. That's job 1 that's happening here. Job 2, I guess, would be the looping, the iterating over this, and as we've just discussed, handling all these exceptions of like, okay, well, something could be wrong in one of these. And I think potentially job 3 could be, we're just calling .create here, but maybe there could be more to that creation process. Maybe it's a 2 or 3 step process because we do something else in there. So maybe that alone could be a separate job as well. And so there's actually quite a lot happening in one place. Why am I babbling on about this? Well, because this is another point where I think it would be useful to think about where are we going to put this in our code? We've put it all in the same place, but do we have to? And that follows really neatly on from something like rescuing exceptions. In each of those 2 or 3 areas, something different can go wrong, and we care about that for a different reason. So the YouTube channel ID being invalid, we care about that because our user cares about that, because now we can't import any videos. Or maybe Yeah, maybe Justin's example is correct. The API ran out of quota. That's not a problem for the user. That's our problem. We've run out of quota. We have to wait and wait for the quota to get renewed, or we have to pay some money and raise it as an exception internally that we care about, so we can go and put a credit card thing in the API dashboard or something. And then importing, maybe we care about invalid characters, encodings, or a video without a description or title or something like that. So what does this look like? Let's write some code because I've just been talking for ages. This is an interesting thing that we brushed on last week, which is the concept of of where that lives is, again, an area that is also within your control. How you choose to model that. And that is something that you can then have endless debates around with people, other developers on your team. If it's just you, you can kind of go and read a million blog posts about this. It's also something that I think for learners, the idea of having models and then talking about modeling things can kind of be an interesting linguistic challenge, especially for learners where English is their second language. There's a lot of I don't know, it trips me up a lot of times what people are talking about. There's a lot of nuance in there that isn't always conveyed in what they're saying. So a kind of common pattern that you might see in Rails for something like going and communicating with the YouTube ID would be like a service object. And so that might look, that's another example where basically it could be, you could say a service object and 10 different developers, 20, 50 would give you 10, 20, 50 different versions of what that looks like. So here's an example. Let's say, sorry, that's import channel videos. So this is how I've seen these done. You probably don't want to just call it something generic. So you probably want the word service in there or something to make it more. And then import channel. I'm just going to do that again. I don't, just because I know I'm tight on time this morning because I have to go out after this. I don't want to go into this, and I'm going to talk more about what I'm doing in a second. I'm just going to kind of code this up. So this could be yeah, like that could just be a channel. And then we can be explicit rather than, yeah, so we can see that that's there. And then you might have something like this. This is really rough. I'm not testing or checking any of this stuff. Does that do anything outside of the channel? No, I think that would do it. Okay, so this is something that you might see in a code base that does implement service objects, and it's something that you might not see in a repo that says it uses service objects. And the reason for that is there isn't a standardized definition for what that means, and it's definitely as you move out of something like moving from tutorials into working on projects or moving through open source code or something like that. knowing that people can mean different things when they say service objects. So some examples are, some service objects in some code bases might just be classes that handle third-party services. So they are adapters that interact with our code and the third-party API code, for example. And how far they extend, some of them might just be borderline, like maybe they wrap the gem that wraps the API thing, or maybe they're actually just handling the HTTP maybe they're not using a gem, they're actually going to do those transactions. That could be the service objects. Then you might have some repos where services is just stuff that isn't modeled in the models directory, where I have added a method called call here, which I'll talk about, but you could have like add, it would be like retrieve this month's videos, could be a thing, and then it would call import videos, but maybe have a to date and a from date or something like that. And that would also be a method on the service, and then you would add a couple more, and that's all in part of the same service, because the service represents from this or this. Okay, this could be this year's video. The service represents, like, we don't have a corresponding model for this, but we have some jobs that need to get done, and the service is the thing that does those jobs. We do them there. That is totally a thing that people do and consider service jobs to just be classes that do stuff. I don't know what they call the definition of that. And then the final one, not the final, but another one is the one that I was looking at here, which is where you then have these classes and then you have one public method. So I've used .call. I won't bother going into why, but you will see that as a kind of common pattern. But nothing else. You can only call .call. And so you then have a couple of handy things around these, is that you then you can't do anything else with them. You can't add to them. You use .call, and then whatever happens. What sometimes people can get a bit lost in here is the response value of these. I actually tend to create a service response if I work it in this pattern. So you might have like, and that just so that everything returns the same thing, and then go and create a class called service response that has like usually all you care about if you're following this pattern is that it's true or false. But like, was it successful? Is true or false? But then you also want there's a few of these. GitHub have one, and a couple of good blog posts around them, and they basically just like, you always get back the same thing. So every service in the system should always return this. So this would then be, I've got a code base that does this. So the response has a return method on it, and then it knows that it's been returned and can't, you then can't modify it and things like that. And that's another example of what people call service objects. And so this is, why do people, use this pattern and things like this? It's often because the thing that they are trying to do doesn't map overly well with their models, or they want to keep their models representing the things that are only in their database or code base, and they want to not have that get polluted with gems and gems and third-party APIs, or separate out those interactions. I'm not an expert on any of that stuff, and there are really good long blog posts as to how people do those things. I'm also not hugely an advocate either way. The one that I dislike the most is the service object representing things that we couldn't be bothered to model better. And the example I had where you got get last month's videos, get this month's videos. The services, some do retrieve, some do a bunch of data creation. They just do a bunch of different stuff. That feels very messy to me. And as the code base grows, when someone says, "Oh, we'll make a service for this," that suddenly has 20 different meanings to 20 different people in the same code base. And it really hampers developers who come to the code base looking for a consistent pattern. I would certainly personally value consistency over pretty much everything else in past a certain aspect, because when you add a new developer to a code base, you really want them to just be able to like, oh, okay, well, how do other services work? And if you're clicking through a directory called services or third-party APIs or whatever directory they're clicking through, if each time they go through a different one and it's done in a different way, that's whether they're a junior or I don't really like those terms, but like based on their experience level of those things, they're going to get more confused. So I think I would advocate more for like a consistent, okay, well, we'll just have .call or, something like that. Just another note on that, and I'm spending ages on this, but people do ask about it all the time. So I'm just going to link back to, I'm just going to call this a chapter and link back to it. Is the naming of the services is interesting as well. So one pattern I see here is kind of calling the service, the class, the job that is being done. Also like making them vaguely kind of like follow the kind of RESTful verbs. So it's like retrieve channel videos or like, get, and then like upload channels, update existing channel. You might have them around those. If you're using a third-party gem, matching the service object names to the things in the third-party gem. So Stripe and PayPal and things like that is often like a common pattern. So you'll see like, confirm payment, or with all of the new SCA and PSD2 regulations and stuff, you might have like generate payment intent, confirm payment intent, and handling all of those as individual service objects rather than having like one class called PayPal and having each and methods that each do those, and having a service object which effectively just wraps the gem maybe and doing it that way. But again, you could just call the YouTube service the service object, and then this could have, so you would then have something. I'll keep the word service in there because you probably don't want names like that floating around in the code base, because you can end up with like a YouTube gem or something like that. So YouTube service, that has got a capital letter there, but it probably wants to be that. Did I do it on this one? Oh, that's interesting. That capitalization probably won't work because it doesn't really matter. But here, what was it we had? Import channel videos. Import channel videos. And then it could be like, maybe you could do like def import an individual video or something like that. This could be the service object that people refer to. So the gem setup is in here, for example, or you handle all the error handling in one place. Like these are all different types of service objects that are referred to. And so I think that hopefully, I'm just doing a really long rant, but basically like I'm going to use this as the place where I link people back to, where when they ask about service objects, I'm not always 100% sure if they haven't clarified quite what they're asking about or what they're looking to do. If I was starting on a new code base, which I am, okay, so let's take a look at this. So let's get rid of this one because this is one of my least favorite, which is having lots of things to do. Yeah, would I put in a service? So our other option is to then put is to represent this process in our models or as something else. It doesn't have to go into models necessarily. So it could be like an adapter or a processor or something like that. These are all terms that I kind of see in code bases around as teams kind of come up with different things. So what are we actually doing? We are just going to retrieve a bunch of them and importing them. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge issue with doing something like this one. And just having .call on there. One of the things about how, if you are going to follow a pattern like this, is that in my mind, that if you're going to do this, you really need them to, not need them, but there are benefits in treating them a bit like background jobs, which is that like I'm going to tell you to run, and I really need you, the service object, to handle either working or raising. Like I don't want you to suddenly have to call 50 other services or jump back up to different models and have loads of different things happening if you don't work. So whether the service is also idempotent might be interesting. Like if I call the service once and then I call it again, will it suddenly undo the work of the first one? Like, will it bring back the same response every time? Do I care if they get called multiple often? And that's why these tend to work pretty well as like background jobs, and kind of thinking of them in that way, rather than, whereas, yeah. And like I said, like I think you could easily have another developer come onto their video and just say all of the opposite things, the things I have just said about service objects. They're like, as modeling choices, they seem fairly controversial. I don't really have, I just kind of use what's there most of the time. I'm not particularly controversial developer, whereas I think a lot of people would rather have that logic modeled in the app itself rather than just kind of having a bulk of stuff under services. But then I've worked on some really neat code bases where, especially third-party services, are just listed under services, and it's generally just third-party services. This was YouTube. You'd usually have like each service listed, and then it is the point where it interacts with performing that task with a third-party service. And generally those services do the job correctly, raise. Yeah, I generally only really care about those two, or do the job correctly or incorrectly. Like bring me back a pass or fail, or raise. I don't want you to do much more than that in those services, I think would be my personal preference. So bring me back a success or failure. Maybe I need something to come back, like the response itself has some IDs or whatever, like, nothing major. Or raise if something's gone wrong. And then, well, in the examples we were talking about earlier, so APIs going down or something like that, I wouldn't expect the service to handle that. I would expect the thing calling the service to handle that. Maybe. I think it's acceptable to have something like maybe a quick bit of retry logic that works for, maybe it tries to see if there's like, transient error. So we went down and then we were down for a few seconds and we came back. So maybe that could all exist within that service. But if the API is down, where do you want that handled? Maybe probably further slightly up. But again, and especially if you're calling the service object in line, so any payment code, for example, like if you're going down as far as a service object and needs to go back up to the user, I definitely want that to just bubble back up as quickly as possible. I'm hoping that made some sense. That was an unplanned ramble into service objects, but someone asked, and it's really helpful to just have something I can link back to, and also to have an example of one on the screen, which I think might work. We haven't got this service response. I actually might have one. Let me go and check my other screen. Just going to look in a repo that I have. And it's literally, we're going to do maybe like a, here's one I made earlier. So if you're, just going to check and see if I have one. I wrote all of this, I think. So if this sucks, don't blame me. Well, yeah, you can blame me. Sorry. Yeah, do blame me. This could maybe not live in here. This could live in like lib or something because it's not modeling. Well, I suppose it is modeling something. The service response, or you could put it in the services. It doesn't matter. Okay, so what is this doing? This is a service response that I've used on another project. So it has an array of errors, a hash that's metadata. This could just be successes, I guess. So in this one, we have a reader that's just called, and that gets set. Oh, okay. So I've obviously been using it a while because I've deprecated this. So that can go. And then we've got this successful, we raise a not called exception unless it's been called. So you basically can't right. Okay, so I think this is an example of where you're calling a service object, and very often you'll have like I think because we had an errors array, and it was people checking for service response.errors.any in the same way you might do that with an active record object or something, but they had then missed the call, so it was coming back as successful, but they hadn't actually ever called the service response. They hadn't, called the service. So that's why the dot return here is the explicit return. So you then can't ask if it's been successful unless it's definitely been called. So that's what that was trying to head off at the pass there. And then successful is I have been called and I am not. My errors array is not empty. So that again follows the pattern of often there'll be like a successful trait, not trait, like a successful accessor that you set during the service. So in here you might have like, something went wrong, set successful as false. But I think for some reason this response follows the pattern, the kind of more active record pattern of like, well, if something went wrong, populate the errors, and we'll use that as the marker of if something went wrong, there'll be an error, and if it didn't, there won't be. That's it. That's how we know. And so in our exception there, you can see it. And that's pretty basic in terms of what that's doing, and that's what we're returning for every service. And you can make this as complicated or as simple as you like. Like this doesn't have to do any of this stuff. It could just represent, like we added metadata, got a metadata thing in here. Like that's pretty wild. Like, because you can then pass active record objects back and then act upon them. Good morning, Pedro. If you're just joining, you might have to watch. There's a huge rant around service objects. Not a rant at all, just a long conversation around it. So you could kind of make this. So in metadata here, I think I remember from using this, we were passing active record objects back from the service response. That's something that you might not want to do for a whole bunch of different reasons. So for example, you might have a service that's acting upon something and you return the object in the response metadata here, for example, but then actually the one that you're holding in memory has been modified some way in the database. Maybe you've got different services or stuff happening. So that might be a really bad call. So I have this for the code base I've just grabbed this out of. We're not too worried about that from memory because of where we were using this. But that might be a really bad thing to, not bad, but like a really non-optimal thing to do for your code base. You might want to say, right, well, even if we need to pass data back up, don't pass an active record object back up. Like turn this into, this is actually just a hash. So it was actually our implementation was passing active record objects into the metadata. But you could even check, you could say, right, when we set stuff on the metadata of the service response, make sure it's only in this format, or I'm only willing to accept this type of thing, like a hash or whatever it is, a hash that only contains strings or these values. I mean, you can do whatever you want, basically. If you're coming to this question, this kind of service object question as a beginner, or again, not a good word, but like as someone who hasn't worked on different code bases implementing them, give them, read a bunch of blog posts and give some a try. It's a really lame way to say it. And I know, especially if you're time constrained. If you're time constrained, stick a call method on and just go. Doing the work is more important than worrying about optimizing it prematurely for now. And you'll kind of find things as you go. At least maybe find some good examples of stuff that you like around. You can spend a couple of hours looking for that maybe. I've used these on some medium-sized code bases, like this pattern of calling .call. And again, it's up to you to be aware of any issues with like side effects of the, calling it multiple times, or race conditions around different services calling at different times. That's on you to handle. But if you think you're good, and you're only ever acting maybe like upon one service at a time, like if it's a payment and you're trying to capture it or authorize it, like a bunch of that stuff is handled for you by a third party. For example, like you can't capture the same payment twice and stuff like that. So that was very long and takes us away from this. So what would this actually look like then? So in here, this would then become, I don't know what our capitalization of this is going to be. I had such high hopes of writing loads of code. So YouTube service, import channel videos. Oh, great. So new, and the channel is going to be the channel. And I would then do that. Right, so here, I think I've got the spelling right. Here, we are then expecting back this service response object. Do we need that in this instance? So for example, again, we were talking around like, well, why do we care? Like we're only calling this in a background job anyway, so it's either going to raise or it's worked. If it hasn't worked, it should have raised probably. Because if this returns, so let's say we do this, again, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't really, like if response dot, what was it? Successful? Yeah, successful. Do nothing. Like, you might send an email or something or whatever. Stuff, whatever. But also here, if something went wrong, what are you going to do at this point? Like, if something has gone wrong importing a channel's video, you probably needed to know about it because it's in a background job. So if it's failed here, these are all things, again, I keep coming back to this point. These are all things that you have to think about around your background job. If something went wrong and I'm bringing back this service thing saying, hey, something went wrong and I have errors in here. And I'm like, okay, well, response.errors dot each, great. I maybe do something else in here, but a ship has sailed by this point because if we were to just like, we could do something in here like send an email, this job won't retry. So something went wrong, but because we're not raising anywhere in here, the job will consider itself successful, consider itself complete, and just not try and run again. So you probably do want to be raising. So that relationship between background jobs and service objects I mentioned earlier, what do you want it to do? Like that's often what you're thinking about. We want it to raise. So like we just want this to raise all the time, I think, because we just want it to know. And then actually I have no idea what errors could come back for that because I haven't looked into it. But we probably, is the API being down a good example? Yeah, it can raise because then it could just retry later. If you are thinking about like noisy error handling, so a lot of like Rollbar, Honey Badger and things like that, some of them will give you kind of thresholds you can set where maybe you have to have the same exception multiple times before it'll actually notify it, or maybe you set that here where you're like, okay, well, I actually only want to know. I'm happy to notify the thing I'm telling, like Rollbar or with the exception monitoring system, but I don't want to get an email from it telling me that that YouTube is down because I don't really care. I can't do anything about that, or maybe I do care because I suddenly need to care about users having a poor experience or something like that. Or maybe maybe if the API goes down, we automatically here do something where we say we show a warning on the UI. So we actually change a flag in the database somewhere, and only when that then goes away do we then change the flag back. I'm being super vague because there's just so much control that you have at this point, and I'm just kind of hand waving because I want to get on to the thing that I wanted to do, which is to finish the site controller. And I think maybe I've convinced myself by that big rant that there is an interesting idea of like doing 2 or 3 different versions of these services for people to take a look at as learners. But maybe we set that as the topic. So I've set it as the topic of the episode. It's all I've spent time talking about this morning. All right, let's do none of this. But now And this could be our entire, oops, missed one out. This could be our entire background job, and literally all it does is call this service. So I think we had some tests for this. So in here, I know I'm just about to go down another rabbit hole by having these tests break. Okay, so with the shared. So we've got a channel with a valid channel. It should populate the channel with videos. So here it's subject to perform channel. So this could go here. So I'm just going to try and say, so expect this to, oops. Have received new with channel. Okay, so there's a super useful one from Medjo. Not to distract you too much, but I think something valuable for beginners might be to understand how a job acts very much like a controller. Yeah, I've left it really. I've just kept saying that it's kind of on you. So do you mean works in terms of a controller in that? Yeah, so I don't think a job should have. Yeah, so that's kind of just earlier on what I was saying. Like we're actually doing 3 or 4 things in this individual thing, and the job essentially is the thing that's wrapping those. And I think I keep deferring to being like, it's up to you, quote unquote, how you handle those. So yeah, the job is how we're wrapping up like the gem contracts. What was the ones we had earlier? So like it goes to get the API. The API might be down. It passes the API a channel ID. The channel ID might be invalid. It goes and loops through the video. Justin's point earlier was that there's a cap on how many videos we can have. Like the job represents all of those things, and how you choose to swallow or bubble those errors or issues is like part of that process of thinking that through. Yeah, I think that is a really like, yeah, having that's a lot of responsibility around one thing. And the tricky thing in terms of imagining them like controllers is the really good thing about a controller a lot of the time is that you are tied to that request response cycle. So there is a user is waiting for stuff to come back. So there's like, you're automatically aware of like, oh, there's a pressure to respond to something here. I've got a timeout or something has to come back to the user. With a background job, like you can give it more work and you have less constraint. So yeah, I know I'm kind of like saying, hey, you have a lot of responsibility as a user. And then it's like, so to perform. So with channel. Oh, actually, we can do. We can just kind of mock this thing. So if we say that this is the YouTube service. I can never remember to have received. I can't remember the syntax for that, but I think double will do. And then we don't care about to have received. Yeah, because then we can we just assume that that's going to do its job, which is a pretty shitty test. Well, it's not. It's just saying, hey, did you call the service? Like that's literally all that, because that's all we're expecting this to do. So did it raise if it didn't have like it's only got 2 lines of code now? So we're deferring all of that complexity that Pedro mentions into we're now asking the service object to handle that. Again, it's your. How you choose to model that is kind of up to you. So you basically here we're treating the job as literally just the trigger to go and do the things. On a spy instead of a double. Yeah, I was waiting for this to fail. Will that not? What does double bring back? Because I can never remember the difference. Let me see if this fails. Can I put? Actually, let me use terminal because I was doing this the other day. So let me bring this up here. So because I've been working on a code base that has fancy custom stuff for that. Nope, and I'm on a different laptop. Oh, how does it help if I was in the right place? Okay, right, we're going to do this. And then we're totally going to smash through updating every time. 8. Great. Right. Okay, that was too optimistic. Yes, I think you're right. So when you say spy, is that the equivalent? I don't tend to like. Is that of that? Like having an instance double of? Oh wait, whoops, wrong one. Oh, have I just put it in the wrong place? Yeah, here. Is that the equivalent of that? Just spy? Like that? What? Okay, okay. Why am I not using spy more often? You can use any test double as a spy, but the double must be set up to spy on the messages you care about. Spies ultimately spy on all messages. Okay, what is the difference between a... So invitation is spy, invitation, deliver. Expect invitation to have received, deliver. What is the difference between an instance double and... Because spies are an alternative type of test double that support this pattern by allowing you to expect that message received after the fact using have received. So plain double will say don't know about that method. But an instance double will verify that the method exists. So I've always used instance methods, whereas doubles require explicit stubbing. Ah, so I've done this. So I've done this. Think of a spy's log. So what's the difference between a spy and an instance double? An instance double is the most common type of verifying double. Yeah, so I used these. That's what I was saying. Like I put double, but I think I mean instance double. I've never used spies. Okay, so I'm learning this morning. Excellent. It verifies that any methods being stubbed would be present on an instance of that class. So I would imagine something more like this. And I can't remember the thing that I'm supposed to have stubbed. This, I think. But I've spelled it incorrectly. YouTube service. Think of a spy as a log, a double as a verified instance. Okay, so I am going to go and look into using spies more because I am not using things correctly by the sounds of things. That sounds like something that I should definitely... I'm going to zoom in real bit because there's more spam in the Twitch chat this morning, which is very frustrating. You can use any testable or partial double as a spy, but the double must be set up to spy on the messages you care about. Spies automatically spy on all messages, or you can allow a message to spy on it. Okay, I'm definitely missing the different. Is the difference semantic, or is there just like, is it wrong to use an instance double in, like, so let's say this was instance double here. So double needs to have the expectation set before the exercise usually. Oh, do you mean in terms of, so I wouldn't need to stub this out either on the SPY? So it would accept new as well? Double has the benefit of not stubbing methods further down the chain, which you aren't expecting. SPY sledgehammer double is explicit. Okay. This is okay. So I'm hoping that people can see the chat on the screen because some are in Twitch and some are in YouTube. So double has the benefit. No. SPY sledgehammer double is explicit. Okay. I don't know if that's okay, but you're saying I would be better with a sledgehammer there? I've never, like, this is amazing. Okay. So I'm not familiar with SPYs. I think I've always been using instance doubles like this. Did I spell that correctly, by the way? I'm just aware that I was typing so quickly earlier. There's no way that I got all of the file names right. Oh, wait. This is no longer a thing, so I had written that as the test. Okay, I was trying to get the control pins. Go with SPY just so I can have the assertion after the exercise. Oh, I see. So what this... You think these would need to be the other way around? I thought I'd done it this way around before. Maybe I'm totally not following along. Let me try that again. Sing keyword arguments channel. Yeah, I wanted it to and message call. Yeah. So I would have got yeah. So I think. Do I need the double get there? Yeah, I'm interested. That's super interesting. I'm interested to go and look at received call with unexpected arguments. Okay, so then. Come on, Max. I suppose you have received call. Oh, so is this the like doing it that way? Oh no, you don't get call with channel. You just get call. Oh, okay. Right. That was super interesting. Okay. That is, no, you didn't, well, everything's throwing me off this morning. But, because we were supposed to be working on the site controller, but this has all been far more interesting. I am going to go and I'm obviously not using SPYs enough. Because I find that analogy, the sledgehammer, analogy more interesting. So the idea presumably that I can then just set that at the top and then not worry about it, doing it case by case. I've never really seen that in the wild either, like particularly. I'm obviously not looking at that enough. Okay, I'm gonna go look at that. I have bumped into SPYs more on Jest, I want to say, like the or whatever those other Jasmine, whatever those JavaScript ones are. Use SPYs there. But again, I've always used them as kind of I've always thought of them as just like verifying doubles. But then I'm always out of my depth in the JavaScript testing side of things anyway. All right, cool. Right, let's go. Right, we're going to jump away from this because that all kind of, I think, works, but we're not really checking anything. So we'll find out. Right, let's go and do the last thing that I wanted to do today because I really have to go, which is that we want to tidy up the bit. But this is all just nuts and bolts now, but we really want to get to having a sites controller. So this is exciting because we want to have a place. If the app we're building has sites, this is the most important part, the bit where the people actually come and view the site. So we're going to have a sites controller. And this is where I refer to my follow-up from earlier, which is that I am oh, I've already got one? Cool. Okay, so we only have a create view. Okay. A create action, sorry. So what we really want to, so my follow-up was that I hadn't gone and done a UI. What we really want to do is have these amazing looking sites. Like, was it River? I always forget the thing that we looked up for. We just want to look it up. So we want to have get show, and what will we have? We will have, I think the site had a slug, and it will come in as the ID, I guess. So we would need a site. And we can just use a factory for that. Yeah, I think we made a... Yes, okay, let's just assume that everything's working. So with a valid site, as a non-logged in user, I think we had a slug. Oh, it doesn't look like we did. Okay, we'll have to just use the ID. Okay, well maybe we could look at slugs and stuff because I think that's something that crops up a lot, like friendly ID. That gem tends to crop up a lot, making things sluggable and all that stuff. So it return a success response, and that's literally all we really care about at this point. So we just want it to say there's a page that comes back like that. That's all we HTTP status. I think it's something like that. Okay, so we're just going to do a really quick test. And then we haven't got the view or a controller action or anything. What? Or did I just do? Okay, just did the previous test, which is always always helpful. Okay, cool. So loads of typos, probably. Great. Okay, so. Yes, excellent. So no root, no nothing. Cool. So then we can just go and make this work. Now, I think that this is going to bring us kind of back around in a giant circle because, okay, so now we want to show. Because where we first started many moons ago was looking at how we might want to provide users different ways of editing a thing. And so what we actually looked at was introducing this idea of a namespaced area, like control panel we have here. And so you could then do stuff to your resources in there. So a site is a good example. And we are now going to have this show view for a site. But the first thing a user is going to want to do after finishing this, so that error is just telling us we need the view for this controller. So don't have a folder for it. The first thing a user is going to want to do when they get to the end of this kind of user onboarding setup is to edit the thing that they're looking at almost immediately. And so we can then look at, do they have names? Has a name, has a description, and it does have a slug. Okay, but I don't think I actually bothered to put in anything that populated it, so we'll just use the ID for now. So we've got name and we've got description. Okay, so then we can do description. And we can do the thing we do every time, which is go and grab the whatever the tailwind thing is for this. And that one can be the name. And then here we can just have the description for now. Okay, so let's go back to our test. So we're just doing some nuts and bolts wiring up here. So we don't have a site set, which is great. So we want to just add in here. Again, if you're, I think Robocop's default rule does have one that says don't prefix things with set, but I'm not too fussed about that. So I think we can just use .find here, because we're going to get a sanitized thing from this anyway. And we just want a pass or fail, whether one exists. We don't, I think we can just do a .find. Couldn't find site without an ID. I'm also just aware that I only want that to run on show. Couldn't find site without an ID, so the params ID site.id. Site equals site.find params ID. Okay, I'm totally missing something really obvious there. Site equals site.find params ID. So params ID is empty, but in the action we are passing in a. Oh, is that inside? Is that like that? Can't be. What? Come on, I'm just going to try and do this from... No. No, it's just passing in the ID straight like that. It's good how you just do something that's really nuts and bolts that you do every day and then really cock it up. All right, so I can't remember what format I should be. Oh, okay. Wait. How is that suddenly working and then it wasn't? Why did it fail here? What just happened? Okay, that's strange. It's now working. Did I not save this? Okay, that seems like something I would do. Okay, so we now have, if we go over to our Rails info routes, well, we don't have a server running, so let's just pull up a server. Okay, so what we hope, I've probably broken that background job now. I should have left that well alone, but let's hope that our quickie copying and pasting over into a hastily created service object worked, because then we can maybe run this end to end. That's going to be the last thing we do today, because I really appreciate everyone following along, and this has gone way longer than I thought, because I've got to disappear. It's already 12. Okay, so remember that we have this Rails info routes where we can see all our really helpful stuff. And then we have sites ID as our new one here. So this is site path. And if you remember, during our site setup, this is the bit that we added in last week to redirect the user to the channel. And so now we want to change that for the site path because that's now there. And we can send them to the site. Now, I'm assuming that this will break because I will have cocked up that the service object because I copied and pasted really quickly and wasn't doing any tests or anything. So just really quickly, gonna grab this, gonna grab this. Thanks, George. I appreciate that. Okay, so that's set up. So let's see. Oh, I don't think I've got my other job running to get. Oh, I can't remember what it was either. Rake worker or something. This is exactly where we got to on the last. That's thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's my nephew who's come to say hello. I'm aware that I am getting messages on my phone and stuff from George as well. So morning, George. George, I have to say I'm impressed that it's midday and you're awake. So I'm very impressed with that as well. So we want to Rake jobs work. That's the one we're looking for because we just want to run these in the background. So we're creating the job when we do the every time. When we do the details controller here, and we make it wait 30 seconds. So when we run the job, think 30 seconds should have passed. We'll actually try and run this now, and we'll probably get our errors in here as to what went wrong with our service object. So here we go. One, did you mean at channel? And that is in to end. So let's go and look at, is that typo in our job? So that's channel there. So I think in our thing here, yep. So we're setting channel as channel, which means these are all now instance variables. Oh, I think that's the only place where we use that. And so if we update that, I think we have to restart the worker to get the code reloaded. I can't remember that actually. But hopefully if we restart the process that's running the jobs, it will try and run it anyway. Nope, still got the same one. Did I miss one? Channel a couple of lines down. Ah, damn. So close. Okay. So. No, I don't want dictation. So you can invoke the jobs individually from, if you're using, this is delayed job. Most of these backends actually come with a user interface, optional user interface. Delayed job definitely has one because I have used it at some point in the past. I've also built one because I needed something specific and I can't remember what. But for delayed job, if you remember when we looked at that in a previous stream, they are just records in your database. They're not in like Redis or anything like that. They're just in your database. So you can just build controllers and views and look at them like normal jobs. So that's really helpful. The default web thing is fine for delayed job. I didn't have any problems with it. I think the reason that I had to build one once was because of like bringing it into where the admins were doing their job and like just making them more visible to them. But that is really helpful if you're new to kind of working with background jobs and things like that. You can trigger them from the console usually. You can basically just so you don't have to sit and wait doing what I'm trying to do here, which is like trigger them every time. Undefined method return for null class. Okay, like I'm totally... so that is... Right, I totally knew this would screw me over. I should not have... Typo there. Okay, so the issue being is that you are then yeah, the same sort. Is that you're then restarting this every time, which is not ideal. And I copied and pasted that, so the odds of that working first time are going to be pretty much 0 as well. So we don't. Again, this is all good. One of the good things about this demonstration is that you can see that the issues are happening in the background job. And what this means for the user is that nothing is going wrong. So the user can actually carry on. So I can say test 1, 2, 3 at whatever, doesn't really matter. And so, maybe we're having issues. Maybe the API is down. This highlights the point we had from that previous stream about the delayed job host. And then my account has been created. Oh, okay. And this is my site. This is amazing. So this is now /sites/10. So this is the show view that we have, and the site is called test. That's great. We didn't add a description for it. Is this now working? Starting job worker. Because what we can then do is show our channels and then our channels videos on the site show view. And so then we have that's kind of the completion of this structure that we set up. A site can have many channels, a channel can have many videos, but all the user cares about when they've gone through that detail, adding that detail step, is they've given you one channel ID. We've then in the background, hopefully gone to get those videos and populated them. So why is that useful? Well, A, it brings us to the end of that user onboarding process. So we get all the information we need and we can spit it out in the right place. You're viewing a channel. The other part is that we could ask them for more than one channel. So let's say that during the details step, we say, oh, okay, well, you've got a YouTube video. Great, give me the ID. Or again, we covered in a previous stream that we could go and ask them to log in with YouTube or whatever it is. But we could then say in the same step, we could say, oh, do you also have a Twitch channel or Vimeo or whatever thing it is that we care about? And they could say, yes, I do on that same step, and give you all the information they need. Again, you could trigger another background job, go off and process that information as well. Whether you would want to do all of that before asking the user for any, login details is very debatable, but you could. And then when you get to the site, we can loop over the site.channels.videos, or you could automatically start. That is is that run? One failed. Starting job worker. Not sure what's happening on that one, but we could also just go back and do another one as well, just to see if we can get it end to end. So I think what we could do here, get that working. So end to end site is what we're going to call this one. It's not in there. Okay, so that there. There's a 30-second lag anyway. Test end to end at example.com. Add in a password. Right, so I'm hoping that should... When it ran last time, does it transition from saying starting to actually having a run? And it runs the job there. Okay, so what we want to do very quickly while hopefully that's running is in here, we can then say that site.channels.each do channel. We can then have like the name of the channels in here. So they've added their YouTube is the only one we support at the moment. I think we even had channel.name, I think, which I don't think we populate. So let's just put YouTube for now. But that could be something we allow them to do on that details channel. We say, oh, okay, well, we put in the name or something like that. And then here we can then do channel.videos.each. Again, we wouldn't want to do this because there might be a bajillion of them, or as Justin pointed out earlier, a maximum of 500 because apparently that gem can't get more than that. And then we can lift our code from the channel show view where we had it before. And we can just grab these out here, and we've already got the same thing. So in here, we've now got each one. So if we added multiple channels, we would loop over those. And for each one, we could then show the channel name, for example, and then each of the videos within it. Let's see, did our job run? One job process. So can we then go and update this? No, this one, no, because there's a typo. I didn't mean to do that. At channel.videos, plural. Going too fast because I'm aware I can hear people behind me that I've got to go. So okay, so George is messaging me on my YouTube channel and showing up at my door, but I want to get this finished. Channel.videos.each. Why are they not spitting out? Do I want? No, I don't want these to render. So have I got anything coming out of here? No, what have I missed on those? Channel.videos.each. So for, I obviously have a channels because that's how I'm getting in here. Then channel.videos. Does that not come through correctly? Just going to check in the console. So if I do site dot local var in the block. Aha. Perfect. You're a star. But too many people trying to distract me outside my door. Channel.videos do video. Okay, so I've updated that to be video. That's still coming through to there. Those should all be getting spat out. Do I have videos for that site? Oh, every time. It's now become just, it's like I'm never going to bother to set RVM up properly. Hang on, I'll be there in 2 minutes. Surprise visits. Oh. Okay, because if I don't do this, I'll forget where we were trying to get to. So here, if we do site find 11, I think it is. Oh, sorry, channels. There is a channel, and then in there. Okay, so we haven't got any videos on that one. What about on site 10? Okay, so 10 has worked and only brought one. Okay, so okay, perfect. So if we just jump over to 10, amazing. So this one now does work. There's something wrong with our script, I think, on our import because I was breaking that earlier. Okay, so we then have a user being able to go end to end from that site. So they can create the site, add as many channels as they want to it. Those channels will render on the show view, and then we'll go through. Thank you so much for everyone who has contributed today. It's been lovely to speak with you all. I've learned some stuff. I'm going to go and research RSpec spies during the week and report back on that. And I may or may not be able to do a design video where I actually put a user interface on this. Again, I hope you all have had a wonderful Christmas and New Year's. And hopefully I will see you all either in a homework edition or next week. Have a wonderful week. Goodbye.